The moment the waiter set down the champagne flutes, I felt it. Something tightening in the air, subtle but unmistakable, like the silence before a storm tears open the sky. My family had always been unpredictable, but tonight was supposed to be different. Tonight was supposed to be mine. The long wooden table at Riverview Terrace glowed under soft amber lights. My graduation sash draped across the back of my chair. My friends were smiling, my professor had surprised me by coming, and even my younger cousins looked excited to celebrate. And then my mother stood. She didn't raise her glass like someone giving a heartfelt toast. She lifted it like someone making a proclamation. Her face was smooth, rehearsed, ready. "To Alara," she said, her voice carrying across the dining room, "for, somehow, finish in college." A few awkward laughs scattered around the table. I felt my stomach dip. She continued, "You always made everything difficult. You drained us. You fought us. You embarrassed us more times than I can count." People froze mid-sip. A server slowed behind her, unsure whether to keep walking. My throat tightened. "Mom." She lifted her other hand, silencing me with a gesture she'd perfected decades ago. And then with stunning calm, she delivered the sentence that cleaved my life into two distinct timelines. "We wish you were never born." A sound left my chest, small, involuntary, not a gasp, not a sob, something rawer, something that had waited 25 years to escape. The entire restaurant went motionless. My professor's fork clattered onto his plate. My best friend reached for my hand under the table. My cousins stared at their laps, their faces paling. My father didn't move, not even a blink. He just stared at the tablecloth as if the threads were suddenly fascinating. "My name is Alara Quinn, 25, a newly graduated environmental analyst, and, until this exact moment, I was still trying to earn the love of people who were never capable of giving it. I had survived my childhood by obeying, shrinking, apologizing. I learned early that silence was safer than speaking, and achievement was safer than failure. But no matter how well I did in school, no matter how early I came home, no matter how carefully I crafted myself into a version they could tolerate, it was never enough. But tonight wasn't about grades or rebellion disguised as achievement. Tonight was supposed to be proof that I made it despite everything. Instead, it became confirmation that I never really had a mother, only a woman who needed an audience for her cruelty. I felt my pulse thundering in my ears as she lowered her glass, satisfied with the damage she'd caused. She didn't whisper the sentence. She didn't aim it softly. She fired it through the room like a bullet. Someone near the far end whispered, "Oh my God." But the part that broke me wasn't what she said. It was what she didn't say after. No apology, no hesitation, no flicker of doubt across her eyes. She meant it. She meant every syllable. My hands began to tremble. Not from fear. Fear was familiar. This was something else entirely. Something new. A cold clarity took shape in my chest, delicate but unbreakable. The type of clarity that arrives only when a truth becomes undeniable. I pushed back my chair. It scraped the floor loudly, slicing through the tension. Every head turned toward me. My mother smirked as if expecting me to cry or beg or defend myself. But I did none of those things. I stood tall, smoothed the front of my dress, and said softly, "Thank you for the truth." Her smile faltered. Just a flicker, but I saw it. Because in that moment, she realized something she'd never considered. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. And she had no idea what that would mean for her life, or mine. I didn't remember leaving the restaurant. One moment I was standing at the table, staring at the woman who called herself my mother, and the next I was outside beneath the string lights on the patio, the air cool against my skin. People inside whispered behind linen-draped tables. unsure whether to comfort me or pretend the moment never happened. I chose neither. I kept walking. I didn't go far, just to the edge of the pier behind the restaurant. The river moved slowly under the moonlight, dark and patient, as if it had seen scenes like mine before. I gripped the railing, letting the quiet settle around me, letting the shock turn into something sharper. Pain, yes. It wrapped itself tight around my ribs. But beneath it, a slow burning clarity I had never felt before. Inside, chairs scraped. Someone called my name, my professor maybe. A friend's voice followed. I ignored them all. For the first time in my life, I didn't want witnesses. I wanted air. I wanted distance. I wanted to feel something that belonged to me and not the story she kept writing for us. The door creaked open behind me. Alara! It was my Aunt June, my mother's younger sister, the relative my mother barely tolerated, but invited anyway to appear generous. June approached hesitantly, heels clicking softly on the wooden boards. She paused. That was cruel, even for her. I stared out at the water. She meant it. June inhaled slowly. I know. I turned to face her fully. You knew? She didn't flinch. Your mom, Marisol, she's been saying things like that for years, behind closed doors. I tried to step in when you were a kid, but she always shut me out. She made it impossible. Something inside me twisted, not surprise, but confirmation of truths I'd buried just to survive. She always said I was ungrateful, I murmured. Difficult. June's lips tightened. She said that because she needed you to feel small. Small people don't leave. Small people don't challenge her. A beat of silence. If she thinks I'm small, I whispered, why did she wait until tonight? June looked at me with something close to sorrow. Because tonight belonged to you, and she couldn't stand it. That sentence hit me harder than my mother's toast. My graduation, my achievement, my moment. And she had destroyed it because she needed to be the loudest voice in every room, even if that room was celebrating her own daughter. The restaurant door opened again, and this time my father stepped out. He hesitated when he saw me speaking with June. His posture carried decades of practiced neutrality, the stance of a man who survived by keeping himself small too. Alara, he said quietly. Let's talk. June placed a gentle hand on my arm. You don't have to. But I did. Not for him, not for her, for me. So I followed him back toward the patio. He didn't speak until we were standing under one of the heat lamps, its glow revealing a tiredness I had always mistaken for calm. Your mother? She didn't mean it, he said. Yes, I replied steadily. She did. He looked away. I studied him, really studied him, for the first time, and realized I'd spent my entire life waiting for this man to protect me, waiting for him to step in, step up, say enough. But he never had, and he wasn't going to tonight. That was your chance, I said softly. You let her hit me alone. His jaw tightened. You know how she gets. And you know how I felt, I countered. He had no answer. Fathers like him rarely do. June stepped closer. Alara, you don't have to stay in this family dynamic. There are options. Her tone held meaning I didn't yet understand. I exhaled, long and slow. Tonight wasn't about reclaiming the dinner. That was already gone. Tonight was about reclaiming myself. I'm done, I whispered. My father blinked. Done with what? Trying, I said. Trying to earn something that was never love. Trying to belong where I was never wanted. Trying to survive people who keep telling me I shouldn't exist. The silence that followed wasn't sad. It was honest. June squeezed my hand. Good, because you deserve better, and you're not alone in this. Not anymore. My mother appeared suddenly in the restaurant doorway, searching for me. Her eyes locked on mine, cold, irritated, expectant. She thought I'd come back inside. She thought I'd sit down and pretend everything was fine. She thought I'd absorb her cruelty like oxygen. She thought wrong. I stepped back from the patio and walked toward the parking lot without looking at her. Each step forward felt like shedding a lifetime of weight I'd mistaken for responsibility. When I reached my car, I whispered the truth aloud for the first time. I'm done being theirs. I didn't know what would come next, only that it would be mine. I didn't sleep that night, not out of anxiety, those years were behind me, but because something inside me was shifting, rearranging itself into a version of me I had never been allowed to become. I lay awake watching shadows move across my ceiling, listening to the hum of cars passing below my apartment window, letting the weight of my mother's words settle fully into my bones. We wish you were never born. It should have destroyed me. Instead, it clarified everything. By morning, the shock had burned away, leaving only resolve, cold, steady, and clean. My phone buzzed with messages, my friends checking on me, my professor offering support, my father sending a short text. Let's talk when you're calmer. Calmer. As if the problem was my reaction, not my mother's declaration. I ignored him. Instead, I called the one person who had stood beside me at the pier the night before, June. She answered on the first ring. I was hoping you'd call. I'm done, I said simply. Really done. I want out. Not just emotionally, legally. There was a small pause on the line, the kind that tells you the other person has been waiting for this moment longer than you have. I know exactly what to do, she replied. Come by my place at noon. June lived in a small cottage tucked behind a row of oak trees. It smelled like lemons and old books, a sharp contrast to the museum-like sterility of my parents' house. She ushered me into her dining room, where papers were already spread out like she'd been preparing for weeks or years. What's all this? I asked. This, she said, tapping a thick envelope, is everything your mother has ever done that you were never supposed to see. Childhood medical bills, she told me, were my responsibility. School fees she claimed she covered, but actually paid using my college fund. A loan she took out in my name when I was 19, small but unauthorized. A trust my grandparents intended for me that she quietly absorbed into a shared family account. Documents, emails, proof. My breath caught. How did you? I've been collecting it, she said simply. Every time she lied about you. Every time she used you. I knew someday you'd need the truth. Anger didn't rise in me this time. Relief did. Relief that I wasn't crazy, that the narrative of being ungrateful, dramatic, impossible, the labels my mother stitched onto me, had always been camouflage for her actions. What do I do? I whispered. June slid 3 forms toward me, 1 for the bank, 1 for the trust administrator, 1 for the state legal aid office. First, you remove her access to anything tied to your name. Second, you request a full audit of the trust. Third, you notify the institutions she abused. She met my eyes. Every step is legal. Every step is yours to take. A quiet power settled into my chest. I signed the first form, then the second, then the third. June watched with an expression that was equal parts sorrow and pride. Your mother built her power on the belief that you would always stay silent. She has no idea who she raised. I exhaled slowly. Neither did I. 2 days later, the fallout began. Quietly, precisely, beautifully. My mother arrived at the bank expecting routine access, only to be told her authorization had been revoked and the trust was under review. She called me instantly, her voice brittle. What did you do? I protected myself, I said, then hung up. Next came the trust administrator, who contacted her regarding irregular withdrawals. That single phrase sent shockwaves through her perfectly curated world. But the final blow happened in the place she cared about most, her social circle. Word spread that she'd been removed from any financial control linked to me. People began whispering about ethical concerns. Someone finally asked the question she'd avoided for years. Why would your own daughter cut ties so completely? Her facade didn't just crack, it collapsed, and she had no idea what was coming next, because escaping her wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something she never imagined, me choosing myself. When the final envelope arrived in my mother's mailbox, she didn't call me. She showed up at my apartment building, buzzing the door until my neighbor texted, there's a very angry woman downstairs demanding to see you." I took the elevator down slowly, steady, ready. She stood in the lobby, clutching the certified letter from the trust administrator, her face pale beneath her meticulous makeup. For a moment, she didn't look like the woman who ruined my graduation dinner. She looked like someone who'd finally run out of places to hide. "What is this?" she demanded, shaking the envelope. "Why are they saying the trust is frozen? Why are they asking questions about withdrawals I supposedly made? I didn't touch anything." That was the lie she'd always relied on, denial so swift it sounded like truth. "This is a review," I said evenly. "A standard one, now that I've separated my accounts from yours." She blinked, stunned. "Separated? You can't separate from family." "I already did." Her jaw tightened. "You're being dramatic." The word hit me like a pebble. Not enough to wound, but enough to remind me who she was. She used it all my life. Dramatic, sensitive, ungrateful, problematic, as if labeling me smaller made her bigger. "I'm not dramatic," I said calmly. "I'm done." She opened her mouth, but no words came. The silence felt like a truth she'd never expected to hear spoken aloud. "You blindsided me at my dinner," I continued. "You humiliated me in front of people who came to celebrate my future, and I think you enjoyed it." Her lip trembled for the first time in years. "I didn't enjoy it. You were always difficult, Alara." "No," I said softly. "I was always yours, and you never knew what to do with someone you couldn't control." She looked away as the weight of that sentence landed between us. Finally, she whispered, "So you're cutting me out." "I'm removing myself from harm," I replied. "There's a difference." Her shoulders sank, and for a second, she wasn't the woman who dominated rooms. She was just a person confronted with the loss of someone she assumed would always stay. "You'll regret this," she murmured, but the threat felt thin, tired, worn out. "No," I said. "For the first time, I won't." She stared at me, searching, calculating, hoping to find some trace of the daughter she controlled for so long. But that version of me was gone, left behind on a restaurant patio under dim lighting the night she told me she wished I hadn't been born. "Goodbye, Mom," I said gently. She flinched at the word. Then she turned and walked out of the lobby, back straight, steps shaky, like someone trying to balance on a stage where the spotlight had finally gone dark. The weeks that followed were quiet in a way I had never known. My phone, once a conduit for criticism, shifted into something new. Messages from friends, job offers, invitations I would have been too anxious to accept before. The trust administrator confirmed irregularities. My accounts were secured. My name was removed from every document tying me to my mother's finances. Legally, emotionally, structurally, I was free. One afternoon, June and I met at the pier behind the restaurant, the same spot where my clarity had first cracked open. "You look lighter," she said. "I am," I admitted. "It feels strange." "It won't," she replied, "once you get used to living without fear." I looked at the river, at the soft churn of the water beneath the boards. The same river I stared at the night, everything shattered. Only now it didn't look dark, it looked open. "What do I do now?" I asked quietly. June smiled. "Whatever you want. That's the point." And in that moment, I understood. My story didn't break the night my mother declared she wished I'd never been born. It began because sometimes the most unexpected revenge is not destruction, but distance. Not fire, but freedom. Not proving them wrong, just proving to yourself that their words no longer get to shape your life. I walked away from the pier that evening with nothing tying me to the past but memory. No guilt, no apologies, no need to re-enter a story that was never written for me. For the first time, I wasn't surviving someone else's script. I was writing my own.